Welcome to the Leap Hour, where inspiring leadership meets real-world impact. Hosted by Steve Farber, acclaimed author of The Radical Leap, this show brings you face-to-face with visionary leaders who embody the art of leading with love, energy, audacity, and proof. In each episode, Steve dives deep into the journeys of remarkable individuals who've embraced extreme leadership to ignite change, spark innovation, and inspire others to greatness. These are the game changers, the risk takers, and the leaders who prove that heart and courage can change the world. This is the Leap Hour, and the conversation starts now.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to this bonus edition of the Leap Hour. I'm Steve Farber, and thank you for joining me. We're going to have a little conversation today that's, I'm going to say, slightly different from the series that we've been doing so far, because we have something kind of special that we want to talk to everybody about here in just a bit. But first, let me introduce my guest. Robert MacPhee is a friend of mine. Now, that shouldn't surprise anybody who's watched this show, because it's entirely, my guests are entirely populated from my friends. And I've met these friends in different ways. Many of the friends that I've had on this show I've met through my book, The Radical Leap, or other books that I've written. In this case, Robert MacPhee and I met through an organization called the Association of Transformational Leaders. So, Robert, come on up. There he is.
There I am.
So I want to talk about you a little bit more before I talk to you, if I may. So, as you can all imagine, in my line of work, and also in Robert's, but I'll speak for myself. In my line of work, I meet a lot of people who facilitate programs, and that means different things to different people. But typically a facilitator is somebody who gets up in front of the room and, it shouldn't surprise you, facilitates something happening. Maybe it's a discussion, maybe it's an activity, or a combination of the two. But facilitator is a word that's used very broadly. But in general, somebody who is taking a group of people through some kind of an experience. And there are lots of facilitators, and just like in anything else, there are some of these facilitators that are really, really good at what they do, and some who are, let me just say, not. So Robert and I met at the Association of Transformational Leaders. Both of us having been in this industry for a long time, and not meeting until that very first time, which might sound kind of obvious. But he's up in the Bay Area in California, the Sonoma area. He's the former director of training for the Canfield Training Group, Jack Canfield's organization. Jack, for the uninitiated among you, is the co-creator of the Chicken Soup for the Soul series, as well as the author of the Success Principles, and is an icon in the training and development industry. And Robert was the director of training for his program. He's also an author. He's got a couple of books. His most recent is called Living a Values-Based Life. He has had programs on fitness and wellness. He's done significant work around the art of making excellent decisions. I've made lots of decisions in my life, and maybe a couple of them have actually been excellent. Not entirely sure about that, other than having Robert on the program today. That was an excellent decision, as you will soon see. But anyway, my point is that he's been around for a while, and he's very accomplished, and he is extraordinary at what he does. And one of the things that I discovered about Robert, having met him more in a kind of a social situation, and then finally having a chance to see him facilitate a while back, not only is he brilliant at kind of managing the energy of a room, bringing the best out of people, he's also just really damn funny. So prove it. Prove it, Robert.
Ready,
Say
go.
something funny. Thank you for joining me kind of at the last minute on this here today, but I really appreciate you being here.
No, I'm thrilled to be here. And thank you for making me sit through that, because I'm going to take the rest of the day off now after hearing all that. One, because it warms my heart to hear that from you, because I have so much respect for you. And two, because it makes me realize why I'm so darn tired, because of all the stuff I've been doing.
Yeah. You don't look
And
tired,
you talked about friendship. I'm just so glad to have the friendship with you. And like you said, it's not that surprising that someone on the show would be a friend of yours, because you're a very friendly guy. Like you're not that hard to be friends with.
and let's face it, it's my show.
Yeah, and I appreciate you putting the emphasis really on the word facilitator, because I think a lot of people don't really have a deep understanding of what that word is, but it is my favorite word to use to describe what I do, because I think it's the best description of the core of the work, and what I really want to be doing is moving people through a process and helping them create not just change, but lasting change. And to me, that's facilitation.
So yeah, say a little bit more about your what that word facilitator means to you and how you define it. I mean, not only in a dictionary definition sort of a way, but behaviorally. What does that mean?
Well, the big element to me is the experiential and interactive element of facilitation, to really create an experience for someone. And you mentioned my background working with Jack. I feel so blessed to have had the opportunity to work really closely with him. He was really one of my first exposures to this whole world of personal and professional development. And I went to his week-long workshop one summer up in Santa Barbara, and thought, oh, this is really interesting. I wonder what else is out there. And I've basically spent the rest of my career in this genre, looking for anything that might be better than what Jack does. But like you said, he really is an icon. He's absolutely incredible at what he does. He's a great example of really practicing what he preaches. He lives his life in alignment with the principles that he teaches. And one of the things he taught me was a simple model of sharing an idea, sharing a concept, but then giving people an experience of it, like bringing it into their body, not just having it be a mental construct, and then doing a brief debrief of the experience that they had. And to me, that's the most powerful way to facilitate. You and I have another mutual friend who actually passed recently as we're recording this, Scott Cody. And Scott, for me, I did a lot of work with Scott as well. And he brought a different level of attention to the element of experiential and really getting the work in your body, as opposed to just having it be a mental construct. So those elements of, have a conversation, talk about the ideas, bring new ideas and new concepts in, but take it to a whole different level by getting it into your body, creating some sort of interactive, experiential event, if you will.
Right.
And then, like, my favorite part of the whole process is the debrief. Like, once people have actually, the idea is interesting. Oh, that's interesting. But when people really get it in their body, and then we have a conversation about it, to me, that's where the real juice is, and where we get into the possibility of it not becoming a conversation that that was really fun. That was really interesting. That was really entertaining. But what have I done with it? Not really anything. But when we really get it in our body and experience it on a deep level, that's where the possibility opens up for people to really implement and apply this new idea in a way that they otherwise wouldn't have.
Yeah, for a lot of people in the front of the room, this idea of, quote, getting it into somebody's body is really nothing more than speaking words into a person's ear.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a big difference between being a facilitator and being a speaker. And so this is the way I've always thought about it. And I'm curious to hear your take on it. So, early on in my career in this field of leadership development and culture and all of that, I actually started out being a lot more of a speaker. In the first kind of major gig that I had, I would do these large platform kind of 2-day presentations that were very presenter oriented with a lot of comedy and a lot of skits and very little discussion. So I got really good at being up in front of the room and putting on a show. And then when I moved over to the Tom Peters Company back in the mid '90s, I started to do a lot more facilitation, and in the way that you described it, which is really about bringing people together and having, bringing something out of them and giving them the chance and the environment to bring it out of themselves and out of each other, which is very different from putting it in like a speaker, telling great stories and being really funny. So what I discovered was that there are these two modalities that would be required of me almost simultaneously when I was doing a workshop. I'd have to be, there's that presentation mode, which is, here's the idea, here's the model, here's the kind of the construct that we'd like you to learn, and let me make it entertaining for you so you're engaged, or you're taking notes. And then it kind of flips over, and now it turns into facilitation. And what I learned early on is that for me and anybody doing that kind of work, it's a great opportunity to develop kind of this toolbox that requires a great deal of flexibility. So on the one hand, there's this presentation mode, and then switching right away in the moment, even when somebody just responds to an example that you give, to be able to turn that into a discussion and go off on a tangent and take it where it needs to go. So where I'm going with all this is, I think a lot of people mistakenly use the words speaker and facilitator interchangeably.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll say, "Oh, I want to be a facilitator, just like this person I just saw on the stage," or "I want to be a presenter, just like this facilitator that I experienced in a workshop." And you got to be really clear on the difference between those two. But I think there's a great deal of value in any leader, for example, to develop both of those skills with their team. It's not just something that you would use when you go away on if you're a professional workshop presenter. So I barfed out a lot at you there. So respond to that a bit.
Where do I start? No, I think you're absolutely right about the kind of the interchangeability of those two terms. And as I'm listening to you, I'm really acutely aware that the skill of being a really good speaker will serve a facilitator really, really well. And like speaking is different. If I'm asked to come in and give a speech, it is different than facilitating. And there really isn't necessarily any facilitation that's going to happen as part of giving a speech. Not too long ago, I was asked to give a graduation speech for a high school. And I thought, oh, that'd be fun. That'd be cool.
Was it fun?
It was hard.
Oh, no.
Like for me, and again, primarily what I do is facilitation. It's working with groups of people and taking them through a process and all that. Speaking is actually a lot more work. And for me, it doesn't really, like, the extra work doesn't make sense, because in most cases, I feel like if I'm going and giving a speech, I don't walk away feeling like I've made the same kind of impact, like it's going to make the same kind of difference as if I was working with a group and facilitating through a process and taking them through that idea to experience to debrief and really integrating and looking at next steps and all that kind of interaction that happens in a facilitation. So, and I'm also aware, like you and I have something in common in terms of having had the opportunity to work with and learn from some really amazing people. Yeah. Like, you have Tom Peters and I have Jack Canfield, and right. And those aren't the only ones, but that creates that toolbox you were talking about, where when you are in a situation and something surprising happens, you may never have seen it before, but you've seen something or experienced something similar, and you have the skills and the confidence and the ability to take that unexpected feedback, whether it's a question or whether it's someone going off the rails. I mean, when I was working with Jack, he does very, very deep personal work, and he's trained to do it. Like, he has the chops to do it. And when I actually took over as director of training and I was running the room for his trainings, one of the things I told him at the beginning was, yeah, I'll take that responsibility. But there's a few people I need to have on the team, because, I mean, he would have people come to his week-long training and they were having such a great experience, they decide to go off their meds.
Oh my gosh.
And then, the next thing, they're out in the lobby having an episode and we got to process them and the whole thing. So people periodically will tell me, God, in these like environments with all this stuff going on at this event, you're unflappable. And I'm like, well, between having run a valet parking company for 20 years, and I could tell you stories about that forever, and then being in the room with Jack and having people go off the rails and go off their meds or whatever, there's not much that can happen in the training room that'll really like.
So given all of that, what was your experience like when that, speaking of the high school graduation?
Well, the biggest part of the experience, honestly, for me was how hard it was. Like, facilitation, for me anyway.
Did you facilitate something?
No, it was just a speech.
Okay.
It was just like, and again, here's a term that like somebody, here's what I do, and I'm trying to describe it, and they don't understand the word facilitator. So I do coaching and consulting, try to use those words that they do understand. And they go, oh, you're a motivational speaker.
Yeah.
And I just, I'm like, the hair on the back of my neck stands up. I'm like, no. Because a motivational speaker to me, and there's some really motivating and inspiring people out there, but there's also like you said when you were introducing me, and I take this as very high praise, there's a lot of people out there who were really good at this work. And then there's a lot that just kind of aren't. Like the bar to get into the coaching field is pretty low. You know, if you can fog the mirror, you're eligible. And and it's kind of sad because, there's people.
Well, there's more than one way to fog a mirror, I suppose.
That's true.
Depends how innovative you are in that. Well, the reason I asked you about your high school graduation experience, speaking there, that is, not graduating, I had a similar experience. So I was invited to give the speech at the graduation for Oceanside High School. A number of years ago in the San Diego area, and I am a speaker. I mean, I love, as you know, I mean, I'll do a keynote for thousands of people and be just as happy as can be. And I've talked to all kinds of audiences all around the world, and I was never so terrified as I was speaking to those kids, and it was torture. I mean, it was torture for me.
It's a tough audience. It is
a
tough audience.
It wasn't torture for them. It might have been slightly torturous for them because they just want to get the hell out of there and get on with their lives. And I'm up there. I mean, I don't know. There's something about there is something that takes a unique level of skill and ability and presence and psychology to do this kind of work with kids, with high school kids and younger. It's very different, which is why one of the reasons that educators and teachers are my heroes.
Yeah,
because the work they do is so critical. And we complain sometimes about how we'll have a difficult room with adults and people that don't want to be there and come in and sit down with their arms folded and their chins hitting their chest before you even start. But none of that, I mean, it just pales by comparison to the challenge of.
Yeah, I had a very similar experience with speaking to the high school audience. And there's an interesting kind of dynamic, I think, where have you ever spoken to really young kids, like down at like an assembly at an elementary school or something like that? Like that's super fun and easy. Like those kids, like they're so engaged, they're so responsive. You say, how many of you? And they raise their hand before they even hear the rest of the question, right? And then you go to the high school and you go, how many of you would like $100? And they go,
yeah.
It's really hard to get. And then later on as adults, they realize, oh, maybe I need some help. And those are the people that we end up working with in adult education. But also, like, as I'm listening to you, I'm remembering a situation when my son was in high school and he was playing basketball and his coach knew the work that I did. And we got into a conversation about kind of the connection between my work and sports and all that. And he said, would you be willing to come in to one of our practices and just share something that you do that you feel like is relevant with the team, just kind of get them fired up or whatever. And I have this model that I use in my work, and it's basically about how your self-image, your beliefs about who you are and how the world works determines the way you think and the decisions you make and the actions that you take, and ultimately the results and experiences that you have in your life. And I thought, well, we could just apply that to sports. Like, how you expect to do is really going to drive how you ultimately do. So I went in, I had my little flip chart and the 15 players on the high school, and they were totally at that, like, and I was looking at them going, okay, this is an hour of my life I'll never get back, kind of thing. But then a couple of years later, the father of one of the players on the team, and of all the players on the team, this would have been the player that I said, okay, he didn't hear a freaking word I said. Like, it was just in one ear and out the other. He told me that he went and visited his son at college, and that he saw on the back of this student's dorm room door, like, he closed the door and there was something pasted on the back of the door, and it was his notes from the presentation that I gave that day.
Wow.
So ever since then, like, whenever I see those high school kids or middle school kids and they look like they're not hearing a word, you never know.
That's
You never know.
Yeah, that's a really great point. And there's a couple of things there. One is, if you do get through to those kids that you manage to get through to, it can literally change the trajectory of their life as a result of just a few minutes. And I have had that experience in some of the work that I've done with high school kids. But the other thing, to your point, and this is true for kids and it's true for adults, I think we have a tendency, whether you're a teacher, a workshop leader, speaker, whatever, we have a tendency to be in constant appraisal mode of whoever it is we're speaking to, of our audience or classroom or whatever. And we scan the body language, and then we start making all these judgments about how well we're connecting based on what's going on their face or in their body language. And I'm going to bet that you've had the same experience that I've had, let's just say more than once over the decades now, where I'll be like obsessing on somebody who's sitting in the audience, and I'm just not getting through. I am just not getting through. And I'm going to do whatever the hell I can to melt that ice, to break through whatever, and nothing. It's just that, that whatever dead look, totally disengaged, and have that person come up to me at the end of the session and say, "Thank you. This was the best thing I've ever done." And it's like, I mean, I wish you would have said something to your face about that.
I had that experience once.
But what I realize is that's a completely self-centered approach, right? Because really what that's saying is, how much fun am I having? Why is this person making this less fun for me by not informing their face that they're having a good time or that they're enjoying this? But it's not about me. It's about them.
Yeah.
And so we always kind of have to proceed as if we're getting through, and we do the best we can to connect.
I remember someone in a group of young people, and she was on her phone the whole time. The whole time I was talking, she was on her phone, and it was driving me nuts. Like, I was like, you are, like, how rude can you be? Like, are you texting someone else in the group? Like, what, like, are you just texting your boyfriend or whatever? Like, and it was really bugging me. It was very distracting. And then I ended up having an experience at the end, very much like what you're describing. This girl comes up to me, and she's still got her phone, and she says, "Can I ask you a couple questions?" And she goes to her phone, and she was taking notes on her phone the whole time. She had pages and pages of notes on her phone.
Wow.
Because she was so engaged and so interested in what I was saying. So I was like, misread that one.
Yeah, well, there's a good reason you misread that, because I mean, how often is that really the case, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's presence works both ways. I mean, it should be obvious that whoever's in the proverbial front of the room, whatever the experience is, whether it's a speech or a facilitation or a combination of the two, has an obligation to be fully present for their audience, if that's the right word. So I think that should be obvious, although it's not always the case. I have had those moments where I realized that for the last few minutes, I was on autopilot. And then I come back to the room, was like, I was just gone for a minute. And that's human. It happens to all of us.
Yeah.
And I tried to minimize that. But the reverse is also true. I think that if somebody's going to take the time to sit in a room and invest their time there, whether it was their choice to be there or not, frankly, they do have a choice as to what they're going to get out of the time that they're parked in that room.
Yeah.
And I think presence is a big part of that. Am I willing to be fully present? Doesn't mean that I have to agree with everything that's going on. Doesn't mean that I have to like every exercise that you're having me do, but there's something that I can gain from it, certainly. And there's absolutely something that I can gain from the people that I'm here with if I'm present enough to get to know them, which is why I'm a big believer in saying ground rules for this session, whatever it is, turn your damn phone off. And if you got to take notes, well, maybe make an announcement. Hey, I'm taking notes on my phone, so that what appears to be a lack of presence, won't be misinterpreted that way.
Yeah.
We have a lot of opportunities to distract ourselves nowadays.
We do.
Sure.
We do. And if I could just add one more thing, and I know you and I share a commitment to working with young people. We've worked together with organizations that have that commitment and gone way out of our way in some cases to do things in that arena.
That's right.
But I look at it like that generation, that middle school, high school age group in today's world is under so much stress and pressure. And you talk about making excellent decisions, and the whole excellent decisions model is based on vision and values driving decisions versus all the external stress and pressure that we're faced with. And again, that age group, the stress and pressure that they are faced with, it's just not fair. Like they're just kids, and they should be able to be kids, and they should be able to have a good time. And if they make a mistake, there shouldn't be 5 people videotaping it and posting it online so it'll be there forever. I mean, I think of some of the things I did, high school, college.
Yeah.
I'm glad there were no video cameras around to capture that in perpetuity. And for me, the other thing, like I was working with Jack. I was hanging out and working with Jack frickin' Canfield while my kids were really young, like in those real formative years. And I tell people, we didn't have a flip chart and a PowerPoint at the dinner table every night. And there was no like reading the book, one chapter at a time and having discussion groups, whatever. But I had the opportunity to be a very different kind of parent because I was in that environment. And when I started like coaching my kids in youth sports and stuff, it became really obvious, really fast that was a very unique situation that most parents didn't have the opportunity to be hanging around with Jack Canfield while their kids were going through those really formative years. And I was a very different kind of youth sports coach.
Yeah, I can.
Can you imagine me? Kid shows up. I'm not good at soccer. Oh.
That's music to my ears.
How quickly I'm going to prove you wrong.
Exactly. Let's just see how wrong you are. Yeah, those little clues that people give us.
Yeah.
About I'm really not good at such and such, or they not self-deprecating in a humorous sort of a way, but really kind of beating up on themselves.
Yeah.
We've been kind of tuned to hear that stuff, right?
They reveal those beliefs and that self-image that is really running the show.
Or one of my favorite throwaway, what seems to be just a rhetorical devices. Yeah, if I'm being honest, I would tell you, really? If you're being honest, you're not being honest. Are you? There's There's a lot that we kind of get attuned to because we're in this line of work. Having said that, and I alluded to this before, these kind of skills that we're talking about that you and I have been fortunate to be able to really focus on for a very long time now are really the same kind of skills that everybody should be developing, whether they're leading a team or a part of a team or showing up in a career or a job, because these are really the tools of better connection and better communication and ultimately better performance, right? But we're not taught these things.
Mm-hmm.
And you and I seek to remedy some of that. Do we not? So that was not a rhetorical question. So this is what I'd like folks to hear about. I mentioned at the top of the show that we've got something special we want to talk about. So I'll give you a little bit of background on this, and then I'll ask for your color commentary, Robert. Because we've been connected, Robert and I have been connected for quite some time, and come out of this, the same field, and have as you could tell, very similar passions about things. We decided that we were going to put our heads and hearts together and create something really exceptional for leaders. So this June, and this is, by the way, this is a first announcement. We have not. Is
there such a thing as a before first announcement?
It's really kind of a before the first.
A pre-first announcement.
It is, in a sense, a pre-first announcement, because a first announcement usually involves having a website ready to go and a place to enroll or sign up. We don't have any of that. It's all in development. But what we do know is that for 4 days in June in Kansas City, and we didn't just randomly choose Kansas City. We chose Kansas City because that's where I live, and not simply in Kansas City, but actually here in my house in Kansas City. We are going to host 12 people, maximum of 12 people, who really want to go deep into their leadership, into their extreme leadership. And we're going to be using the framework, the Love, Energy, Audacity, Improve framework, the LEAP framework, that I've been developing for a very long time, to help people. If you come to this, you're going to be bringing your current situation, your current scenario, and we're going to help you. Robert and I are going to help you really go deep into that, apply these ideas to whatever it is that you're working on. And we'll use LEAP as the framework, and we're going to combine that with Robert's really incredible work around living a values-based life and values alignment. These fit, the proverbial hand and glove together. But what's really significant about this is, I'll speak for myself, I have never done an event like this before. We've had certification programs where we teach people to facilitate the Extreme Leadership Workshop, which are awesome. And we will do more of those in the future. And then we've also had our Extreme Leadership Experience, which are bigger events, 150 people or so with lots of different speakers. This is not that. This is 12 people maximum, very up close and personal, very intimate, in my home. And we're going to have a chance to really work together and work with each other to create some really significant breakthrough growth for the people that join us. Any color commentary that you would like to offer, Robert?
I've never been the color guy, I don't think. I would just say this. So I'm thrilled to have the opportunity to do this with you. I love your model. No pun intended, using the word love. The fact that you bring the concept of love to business and take a deep dive into that and make it very practical and real and very applicable. That just warms my heart. It just works. And for me, having in the last couple of years really been deeply immersed in this values work that I'm doing, helping people and organizations discover and clarify and really live and run their business in alignment with what they've discovered are their highest values, what's most important to them. I'm thrilled to be able to bring that together with the LEAP model, almost like a compass. So if we're going to take this incredible LEAP model and really dive into it, let's make sure that we're applying it, and you use that word in your description as well. Let's make sure that we're applying it like directly, like laser focused in the areas that we are 100% clear are most important to us. And my experience with values work over the years has been that it's very confusing. It's very hard to create something that's very easy to remember and easy to apply on an ongoing basis. And the thing I'm most proud about the values-based life approach that we've created, which in a nutshell divides values into two separate categories so they're easier to remember and apply, to be able to, again, bring that in and combine it with the LEAP model. I'm just thrilled. I'm like, I can't wait to work with these 12 people and bring these two things together for what I think is going to be just a profound experience, along with the fact that I get to work with you in your home in, again, that intimate, very hands-on kind of environment that we're focused on creating.
Yeah. So this is, well, thank you for all of that. The Extreme Leadership Mastery Circle. I said that it's 4 days in June. The reason I'm not more specific about which days in June they might be is because we have not set the date, the exact date yet. So again, what we mean by this is a pre-announcement sort of a thing.
I think you should share the story without using any names. You should share the story about the person you ended up in a conversation with about what we were up to and what their response was, and that is also part of the reason why we're not nailed down on dates is we want to make sure that first person who's already expressed interest, like it works for them.
So when I say that this is a kind of a pre-announcement, I have had a couple of conversations with people who I thought, might be interested in this opportunity. And the first person that I talked to is the president of a small company. And he is really wanting to create a culture at his company that's based on these principles of love, energy, audacity, and proof. And he's been talking with his senior team about it and wanting some help in making that happen. So I told him what we were up to, what we were at this point just kind of conceptualizing. And he said, well, yeah, I want to come and I want to bring a couple of my team with me. And he said, what is your application process going to be? And I said, well, we don't really have one. I've always had kind of an aversion to an application process because in my opinion, if you want to come to something like this, if you have that kind of passion and you have the resources and the wherewithal to be able to do it, I'm not going to tell you that you have to meet some criterion to make that happen. So I said, yeah, I don't really, I have really kind of come one, come all. If you feel like, you really want to be here, need to be here, then please come. And he said, no, I mean, you need to figure out a way to, what are you going to do when you get more than 12 people that want to come? You need to have some way to, to draw the line. And I said, well, I honestly haven't thought about that. I guess what we'll do is, if it fills up, we'll do another one at some point, but it's going to be first come, first served. So, that kind of begs the question, who should come? So if you're thinking about this for yourself, and it's a big if at this point because you just heard about it, but if it's kind of ringing your bells on some level, if you're thinking about it for yourself or for somebody else, maybe it's your company and there's people that you want to send, or you want to come with a small team of people. These are kind of the categories of folks that we think would be really well served for this. One category would be established leaders and or emerging leaders. So if you've got those, those high potentials, the people in your organization who you really believe in, you think the future of your company is really going to be driven by these folks, this is a great opportunity to give them, turbocharge. The other side of that coin is really experienced executives and accomplished executives who've never had this opportunity to go deep in this way. People who are interested in really, passionate about building teams and creating the right kind of culture. People who are change driven, they're innovators. They're constantly looking for a way to improve things, make things better, not just create a better world, in some cases create a different world. Or if you're in the category of entrepreneur, a business owner, and you're just starting out, or you've been at it for a while and you're not getting quite as much out of this, either bottom line wise or beyond the bottom line wise, that you would like to, but by this I mean out of your business. This would be a great opportunity for you to come and re-energize all of that. And for anybody who would come, we would hope that you are a collaborative person, that you're about growing your network of like-minded individuals, because we can guarantee you that is going to happen. The people that you meet in this small, intimate environment could very well end up being friends for life. I've seen it happen over and over again at our previous events of other kinds. But I tell you, people that come to an experience that's based on love, I'll be blunt. We typically, we don't get any assholes. Right? We get great people who want to work with each other. So those would be the kind of the some of the criteria for you to consider for yourself. And soon we will launch within the next week. We'll put up the website. We'll put up all of the, all the bullet points so you can further evaluate it, and you can share it with folks and get some feedback on it, and recruit some other people to come along with you, whatever the case might be. So all that is coming. This is just the announcement before the announcement.
Yeah, and I would add just really quickly.
Yeah,
like I'm very proud of my own background and experience and what I'm able to bring to this event, as I'm sure you are as well. And I'd like to think that all of the wisdom and the benefit is going to come strictly from you and I, as the all wise and benevolent leaders of this group. However, the point you were making about the relationships that get formed and the wisdom that shows up in a room like this, in my experience, having worked with groups like this and similar in size, it is profound at times, and sometimes from the most unexpected source. That person who's been driving you kind of crazy for the first couple of days of the event, and then you need some help with something, and their hand goes up and goes, I don't know if this is really relevant, but boom, like exactly what you needed to hear.
Yeah.
It is really incredible what happens in a room like this.
Yeah, absolutely right. And we've both seen it in the extreme leadership world, where we've been running events of various kinds for quite some time now. I've seen these not just friendships, but collaborative, mutually deeply supportive friendships develop, and I'm not exaggerating here, within minutes. And some, take a little bit longer, over the course of maybe, a really long time, like hours, maybe even a couple of days, but many just happen right away. And again, I think it's because it's a little bit of that values congruence sort of a thing that tends to operate, because like I said a couple of minutes ago, people that are drawn to this are of a certain ilk, right? They're people that really kind of already understand that love is a good thing to operationalize in the way that we do business. And that attracts a certain kind of a person, very different personalities, very different backgrounds, very different kinds of businesses oftentimes, but there's some common core there. So the friendships happen really quickly. Now, when you add to that the topic, which is your leadership and your particular situation, maybe it's your challenge that you're facing right now, or some big project that you signed up for and you're feeling the pressure, or something about your career, or about the direction of your company, whatever it is. When you put that into the mix, in other words, you're not working with philosophical conceptual stuff. You're working with real time, and you're helping each other to do that. Those are the kinds of friendships that go beyond, hey, let's get together and have a drink every so often. It goes, way beyond that, and very quickly. Yeah. And I'm really excited because, again, we have not done this before, to be hosting this in my home. Now, here's why. This work is very personal work. And for me, anything having to do with, what we call around here extreme leadership and the radical leap framework is the most personal work, because it's my life's work. So there's something about the unique environment of welcoming people into our home. And, we don't have a huge mansion by any stretch, but we've got a nice big home and lots of room to do group work and to spread out and do solo work and reflection, and the weather should be lovely here in June. And there's just something about that whole setting that I think is going to be really remarkable. And I've had a taste of this because it's been kind of a tradition of ours. Whenever we've done certification programs, for example, for the Extreme Leadership Workshop, we have traditionally ended the week at our home. We've been inviting people into our home, both here in Kansas City and before that in San Diego, for years and years. And just, for a few hours at the end for a barbecue and a celebration and all of that, or a farbecue, as somebody once called it.
With music,
which I really
just to be clear.
Yes, always with music, okay. Just to be clear. So we've had a taste of it. So to expand that out and say, why don't we just, we're not going to have a sleepover. You're not going to be sleeping in sleeping bags on the floor. There's a hotel nearby, but we'll be hanging out here together and working on this stuff together in our home. That just feels really, really unusual to me and really special to me. And I know that, Robert, when you and I were kind of brainstorming what the setting of this should be, you really, I think, encouraged me to follow that impulse.
Absolutely. And when I was working with Jack, we hosted several events at his home and had several also experiences like you're talking about, where people who were at an event in Santa Barbara where he lives had the opportunity to come up to the house one night and have a dinner or whatever it might be. And it's very authentic. It's authentic to who I know you to be. It's authentic to who I know Jack to be, to welcome. These are not just people I'm working with. There's a closer relationship there.
Yes.
And kind of along the same lines, like I'm just reflecting on the conversation we've had here. I want to clarify something, because I think you and I have such a passion for this work, and we're focused on bringing love into the workplace and the values work and all these kinds of things. But I also know something about myself, and I think it's true about you, which is I have a laser focus on results, like helping people create the results that they want. And I do think I tend to focus on the pathway to those results sometimes even more than and we haven't really talked about like the results focus of this, but I just want to bring that in because I know it's a focus for me in my experience being with you.
Great point. Because here's the thing. I have always been very results focused. And because the Achilles heel for me, I think, or the blind spot in talking about this stuff, is that the result side of the equation just seems so obvious to me that I just don't take the time to point it out. So
Yeah.
let's get clear on that for a second. And to me, it starts with this. There's an old adage that says people don't quit their company, they quit their boss. And when people are dissatisfied, it's because it's not because of some monolithic organization they work for. It's because of the direct experience that they have with the people that they work directly with every day. So if that's true, then let's consider the inverse of that, which is to say that people don't necessarily commit to their company. They commit to their leader. They commit to the team. They commit to each other. They commit to their mission. So this is about becoming the kind of leader that engenders that level of commitment in oneself and in others. So if you can create an environment where people are fully engaged, what happens? They get better performance results. They get higher levels of innovation. You'll see higher levels of commitment as measured by things like longevity, lower turnover, longevity in the organization. I mean, hopefully people will live longer too, but there's a certain place I got to draw the line on a claim. But lower levels of turnover in the organization, higher quality of work because people care about this, care about their work, and so much of this is a direct result of the way a leader leads and the way people show up for each other in their teams. So anything that you're trying to measure in your company on the bottom line, this is the tide, the proverbial tide that raises all boats. Anything else that you would add to that, Robert?
No, I did mention before kind of that model that I use as connected to the values work to kind of put it in context. It starts with that, the self-image work and the beliefs work and all that, and look at like the way, how that affects the way we think, and it affects the decisions that we make, and it affects the actions we take. And that tends to be where a lot of the conversation I end up in. That's where my passion is not that whole pathway. But the point is, the last point on that pathway is the results that we get in terms of the culture that we create and the productivity and the profitability and all those things. That is ultimately the result, is that result and the experiences that we create. And the reason I even brought it up was because I've become very aware over the years how I want to dive into like that end of the pool, and I have to remember, like, okay, this is where we're headed, and this is how we measure. This is how we determine whether the work we're doing is really making a difference.
Well, it's people will often ask me in the consulting work that I do, how do you measure the impact of love in an organization? And I think there are ways to do that through something as simple as a survey, the classic employee opinion survey. You can tell how people are self-describing their experience in working there. But I've always been of the mind that, to reiterate what I said a couple of minutes ago, whatever it is, you decide what it is that you want to measure. And let's see what happens when you start focusing in an intentional way about operationalizing love in the way that you do business. When you start asking the question, what should love, energy, audacity, and proof look like in the way that we operate every day? And you start doing more of those things, whatever it is that you're measuring, you want to see that increase. And if it doesn't have an impact on it, it ain't working. So then it's like, well, how do you know? How do you know that it's causation and not correlation? And in some cases, I don't know. But are you getting the results?
Yeah.
That's really what it's, ultimately what it's about. So, but I do think we can look for people to, achieve a breakthrough in their own leadership growth. We can look for a higher level of clarity, alignment with organizational and individual values. I think we're going to see people's decision-making skills improve, team dynamics improve, confidence will improve, the ability to deepen connections, not only with this network that you'll be a part of here in Kansas City, but also bringing it back to work. And the bottom line, on the bottom line, is this: you're going to walk out of this experience with a very clear, definitive, well thought out, workshopped, in other words, you'll have lots of input on it, action plan. So it's not just a list of things to do. You're going to have a very clear roadmap of what you're going to do once you get back to work. So it's not like you're going to be involved in some discussions and then it evaporates as soon as you get on the airplane. Quite the contrary. And we'll have lots of opportunities to, I'm not going to tell you anything about this at this point, other than to say, to help each other after those 4 days are over as well. So so Robert, I just want to say for the record, I'm really excited to be doing this with you. I think, your wisdom, not only your wisdom that you bring to the party, but your wisdom in the way that you bring the wisdom out of people is going to be magic. And I just think we're a damn good combination.
We're about to find out, aren't we? And but I feel the exact same way from the beginning of this conversation about maybe what could we do, and this all coming together. I'm thrilled at the opportunity and the possibilities. I'm also aware when we first started planning this impromptu conversation today, we said, "Oh no, we don't need an hour. We won't go." We don't need... And the little timer up in the corner here says 56 minutes, and I'm aware. I have a coaching call that I'm committed to be on in 4 minutes. So
yeah, well, okay, we better wrap it up then. Time flies when you're talking with Robert.
There you go.
So listen, folks, if you're listening to this and you're saying, "Well, yeah, this is great, but I want to come. What do I do? Where do I go to sign up?" Well, we don't have that place for you yet. So if you don't want to wait, feel free to DM me. Tell me that you want to have a conversation about it. We'll hop on the phone or hop on the Zoom and talk about whether it might be the right fit for you.
And I think it's also fair to say that neither Steve or I is very difficult to find. So if you want to connect with either one of us to ask a question or get more information, Google will lead you directly to Steve Farber or Robert MacPhee with an MAC versus an MC. That's probably the one thing that trips people up trying to find me. But reach out.
By the way, it's neither Steve nor I, but that's okay. We'll let that lie.
Okay. I'm a public school kid. What can I say?
My kids gave me a mug once that says, a coffee mug that says, "I am silently correcting your grammar." Folks, thank you very much for tuning in for this impromptu edition of the Leap Hour. Next week we're off, but we'll see you again in a couple of weeks with another great guest. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you for joining me on the Leap Hour. Hope you enjoyed our time together. If you did, please like, subscribe, and share the heck out of this thing. Also, don't forget to get your free copy of the Radical Leap audio at radicalleap.org. We'll see you next time on the Leap Hour.